Now that you've finished watching, let's delve into a spoiler-filled review on this anime. There's plenty of other reasons why this is a Christian anime, and I have a few particular criticisms that I'd also like to address. Certainly a troubled young woman, especially with a mother who is very exploitative. The position Mai finds herself in is a really good portrayal of how the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Being forced to perform such a debaucherous act to have a betrayal of familial trust, all for something as simple as money. But Mai's position also highlights a severe problem in the high school social structure. There is a definite rigidity to social circles, friend groups, and such, so much so that outsiders are effectively relegated to loneliness. It's a bad habit we sometimes fall into. We Christians ought to outreach to others who can't really integrate into existing circles and groups. Though, the best thing about Mai's arc is not even Mai herself, but rather the conduct of Sakta, who unequivocally expresses his love publicly for Mai. There is a parallel with how we as followers of Jesus should act, that we ought not to be embarrassed with how we express our love for Jesus, that we, just as Sakta, should boldly proclaim our belief. That the flow that society tries to force us to conform into should be resisted by us as Christians. I find Koga the funniest out of the girls, even though both Mai and Futaba have that wit about them when they clap back against Sakta, really enriching that dialogue. Koga is still funnier. I mean, there's the butt-kicking joke, that young naivety, and just her expressions all make her probably the funniest character aside from Sakta. Though Koga also demonstrates perfectly how conforming with the standards of others is the most destructive thing to our own sense of self and identity. Transactional friendship where attention is demanded from you and where you have to impress others really isn't friendship at all. I really don't understand people who do this, where their friends and fear of a damaged reputation are what mold their personality. I guess there is an importance to being likable, but to the point that you are compromising your own identity to become a clone of the person you're trying to impress is quite clearly unsustainable. So the biggest Christian value which we can take from Koga is simply that we do not have to conform to the things of this world, that we ought not to be beholden to the demands of others. Futaba has an unfortunate family situation, considering that both her parents are rarely home, off traveling to faraway destinations for work. That does, of course, bring a lot of money in and ensures that the family is well off, but within the child brings a desire for attention from effectively absent parents. It really is a tragic thing when a young girl decides to expose herself to the rest of the world just to obtain that bit of attention they oh so desire, though the blame could also be placed on very horny young men. Lust is one of the most dangerous sins that any individual can fall into. To surrender oneself to the desires of the flesh is indicative of a lack of self-control, and Bunny Girl Senpai does well to demonstrate how the sin that we commit is seriously impactful on other people. Though, another concern that is also brought to light is the effect of social media and its role in exacerbating this desire for attention. We are in a unique time where pride and lust are so easily accessible and spread via the internet. It's good to keep this in mind as followers of Christ, that while we should infiltrate every bit of the world in order to keep spreading the gospel, we should also make an effort to defend ourselves from sin. It's certainly difficult, but there is a reason why God wants us to live holy lives. That is not only to our own benefit, but also so that we don't negatively impact others. The sibling rivalry between Nodoka and Mai did have a nice build-up and a good payoff at the end. Though the arc was not well paced and really jumps around a lot, the sibling experience was captured quite beautifully. It teaches that as much as you hate your siblings' guts, you're still family and you can't really escape that fact. Don't treat your siblings like assets, but like they're actually family members. Reconciliation is encouraged by Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, so while there may be jealousy between siblings, Jesus does tell us to forgive one another so that our prayers won't be hindered. And while that love-hate dynamic and that intimacy and rivalry between siblings were all nice to see, I did think Nodoka could have benefited from an extra episode with a few more flashbacks from the past. And this is like the only problem I have with Bunny Girl Senpai, which is that Nodoka didn't have sufficient screen time to build up her backstory. Again, I'll mention this because I really noticed it in Kaede's arc, that the writing is very sparing. No unnecessary dialogue or scenes, but we're given enough as the audience. And a big reason why I think this is the case is because the whole series has had Kaede in the background. Get bits and pieces about her story throughout the series, and Bunny Girl Senpai sensibly concludes with Kaede at the end. There is a full focus on Kaede, with again, only sparing and necessary appearances from the other characters. I'll also mention Kaede's VA, who really sells tells how the character feels. That sense of fear, knowing that any day now she'll disappear, it really is a good performance on her part. And at the end of it all, with everything that she's achieved, Kaede's quasi-death and her diary being read out at the end is one of the best scenes in the series, rivaling Sakuta's confession scene. The biggest thing I take away from Kaede's arc is that our days are numbered, and that God may take us with him any day now. So to have that same attitude as Kaede, to make goals, to find purpose, and to push oneself to achieve those goals is so human and a good attitude to apply to our lives. Though I should also mention Sakuta and the level of maturity he has. I'll criticize him for having a mental breakdown in public, but I will at least commend him for maintaining his stiff upper lip and refusing to show weakness in front of his sister. And that bathroom scene is so clever, the subversion of the bathroom motif, where throughout the series, Sakuta is the one who's been in the position to help, but this dynamic is then subverted in his time of greatest vulnerability. It just makes the bathroom scene in the last episode so much more impactful. Shoko's surprise appearance in the last episode doesn't feel forced. There are already hints in the OP and enough dialogue and flashbacks of her peppered throughout the series that the audience's intelligence isn't insulted. Again, it comes down to that subtle and clever writing that this anime has. The ending to the series is quite fitting, really. It's got that charm, it's got the humor, and gives the series closure. Though, there is also definitely room left for the sequel movie, and also sets up the conflict there quite nicely. I have a few thoughts about the movie. In terms of the logic and the explanation of Shouko's puberty syndrome, I don't think it was fully there. I really like the scenes where Futaba explained the puberty syndrome via scientific theory, and that's kind of missing in the movie. But speaking of Futaba, there's that vulnerability about her which I liked in the movie. There's the scene in front of the train crossing, and I like that we know both her and Sakuta are really close friends. We know this because they trash talk each other, exactly like close friends do, and to have her show a hint of sadness towards Sakuta is really cute. It's that vulnerability only shown between friends, and it was portrayed beautifully in that scene. I really like the movie because the sarcasm and the wittiness of the dialogue is still there. The things that made the series special are still present. The recurring jokes and homages to the series are really cool and definitely a lot to like here. But focusing back on Shouko as a character, she mirrors Sakuta in the manner of speech and general boldness. She's a really nice contrast to Mai. Mai, of course, tries to be serious, tries to act very mature, but is outsmarted by Sakuta. Shouko, on the other hand, is the original one doing the outsmarting. While Sakuta is 2 steps ahead of Mai, Shouko is 80 steps ahead of Sakuta. So a really nice differentiation in personality there. On her story, I am a sucker for stories about kids with terminal illness. It really is a tragic reality that many face, and the VA for Shouko was really good at communicating that desperation that a kid at that age might have. We really get a sense of her hopes and dreams for a future that's never going to come for her, and it's absolutely tragic. In the sadness of it all, Shouko's predicament is ultimately a lesson in gratitude for all of us. We who have been given life, we who have these opportunities, we who have been blessed with so much, we really ought to be grateful for God who has given us these things. And even for a kid in the same situation as Shouko, there are still many things God has gifted that kid. Gift of life, no matter how short it was lived, family who dotes on them, friends who support them, and still, even in the worst case scenario where these blessings are sparse, God still offers his gift of salvation to these kids. The final sequence at the end of the movie really does this story justice. I would have been satisfied both ways if Shouko did die, and in this way too, where Shouko survives. It's a happy ending, and it definitely made me smile. And I will leave it at that for Bunny Girl Senpai's Christian message. The overarching Christian message that this anime has is that message of gratitude. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, whether we're ignored on purpose at school, if we're navigating friendships as if we're playing Civ 6, if we're chasing after a love interest who won't share the sentiment back, if we're seeking approval from a parent who has the highest of expectations, if we're stuck at home and looking to reintegrate with society, or for that matter, if we're never going to experience the rest of our life because it's going to be cut short by unfortunate circumstances, there is something to be grateful for in each of those things. I look back at my teenage years and certainly share that sentiment, and my anger towards an unfair world. It's only now I realize that there were many things I had to be thankful for. So I end this review on that note, that I thank God for his grace, and that he's been the catalyst for opening my eyes to see the things that he has blessed me with and to be thankful for.